From Washington, here is the news in VOA Special English. Israeli airstrikes into the Gaza Strip continued for a sixth day. Israel said it attacked 80 targets, including several police headquarters of Hamas, rocket launching areas, and tunnels used by militants. Palestinian medical workers say at least 19 people were killed in the airstrikes Monday. On Sunday, airstrikes killed at least 21 Palestinians, including 11 civilians in Gaza City. Palestinian rocket attacks have killed 3 Israeli civilians since Wednesday. On Sunday, President Obama said Palestinians must stop their rocket attacks against Israel. But he also said it would be better to end the fighting without Israel expanding its offensive. Mr. Obama said he has spoken with the leaders of Israel, Egypt, and Turkey about ways to end the fighting. An Israeli official arrived in Egypt to talk about a possible ceasefire with Hamas. The Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, says it will hold a 2-month ceasefire. FARC representatives made the announcement during negotiations Monday with Colombian government officials. The talks took place in Havana, Cuba. FARC said at the start of Tuesday it would halt all its military operations and acts of sabotage through January 20th. The Colombian government has not commented publicly on the ceasefire announcement. The talks began last month in Norway. The two sides had not met since 2002. Colombian officials say they want to reach an agreement with the rebels within months, not years. Fighting between Colombia government forces and FARC rebels has killed thousands of people since 1964. It is the oldest continuous rebellion in Latin America. President Obama has expressed concerns about Cambodia's human rights record during a meeting with that country's leader, Hun Sen. Mr. Obama arrived in Phnom Penh Monday. He talked with Mr. Hun Sen about issues including free and fair elections and political prisoners. American officials described the meeting as tense. Later, President Obama met with the 10 other leaders attending the Association of Southeast Asian Nations meeting. Also Monday, Cambodian human rights groups said they are not happy about a declaration approved Sunday at the ASEAN meeting. They said the statement does not go far enough to guarantee rights for all people. The ASEAN leaders are hoping to strengthen political and economic ties during their meeting. Currently, there are tense territorial disputes among some members and China. ASEAN members are divided about how to deal with the South China Sea dispute. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen said the leaders agreed not to take the issue outside of ASEAN. He said ASEAN would ask China to start talks as soon as possible on the dispute. However, Philippine President Benigno Aquino said no agreement had been reached. He said his country would defend its national interests when necessary. China said any negotiations on the issue would take time. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and China all claim areas of the South China Sea. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. Reports from northern Mali say Islamic rebels have seized the town of Menaka from Tuareg rebels. Witnesses and the town mayor tell VOA that the movement for oneness and jihad in West Africa now controls Menaka. That group and the Islamic group Ansar Dine seized much of northern Mali earlier this year after a military overthrow. Both groups are believed to have close ties to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. Tuareg rebels were once allied with Islamic groups, but they cut ties after a dispute over establishing Islamic law in the area. Islamic militants have held public executions and other punishments in an effort to enforce their version of Sharia law. There are reports of new fighting near Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The rebel group M23 says it is now in control of the northeastern part of the city. Earlier, the group demanded peace talks with the government, but the government rejected the demand. There is also weapons fire reported along DRC's border with Rwanda. The DRC has repeatedly accused Rwanda of supporting M23. Rwanda has always denied the accusation. Most members of M23 are former Congolese soldiers. They rejected the government earlier this year in a dispute over better pay and weapons. European election observers are praising the voting process that took place in Sierra Leone Saturday. The chief of the European Union observers, Richard Howitt, said the voting in general elections went smoothly. However, the observers did express concern about unrest reported after the election. Mr. Howitt said he hopes that there will be peaceful acceptance of the results. The country's National Electoral Commission is still counting votes from the presidential, parliamentary, and local elections. The American food company Hostess and representatives of its workers have agreed to enter negotiations. Hostess announced its financial failure this week. It suspended production and entered a court process to end operations permanently and deal with its debts. Hostess acted after workers began to strike 2 weeks ago to protest plans for cuts in retirement pay, health care, and other benefits. Monday, a bankruptcy court judge in the state of New York urged Hostess to try to find a different solution through talks with labor union officials. 18,000 workers would lose their jobs if Hostess closes. The company opened in 1930. It makes bread and sweet baked goods, including its famed Twinkies.